Well, as we bring in the G-Man, Jake stuck with it. G-Man, I think it was 118-79 at that point. Wow, you've called some great games here lately, G-Man, with the Kings on this hot run. Last night was out of character. That was ugly, wasn't it?
Well, it certainly was, Jason. It was more than ugly, and it's you wonder, why did this happen? Was it because it was the first back-to-back and with travel? How much did that contribute to it? But it was just, it was totally out of sorts for what we've come to expect over the last couple of weeks from the Kings. And it was tough to digest, no question.
Yeah, I thought that second quarter is where it derailed. Like the Kings were battling. They started terribly, but, to their credit, they were back up by 2 after 1. And then that second quarter, Zion went to work. And, G-Man, I know Mike Brown, we played some of the cuts earlier. He's a physical presence that I just think the Kings had no answer for his physical nature in the paint.
Somebody goes for 20 points in a quarter, they've got something special going. And the thing about Zion was that virtually every play was the same. It was downhill. It was the left side of the lane. It was high and soft off the glass. For a guy, as we mentioned repeatedly, that of his size, he's listed at 285 pounds, and yet he's just so graceful, so fluid. And he was at his absolute stellar best in that second quarter, no question.
The other thing that came out of this game, and we didn't get a lot of information post-game, and I don't know if there's any more word now, but we knew about the injuries coming in. It was good to get Kevin Huerter back, but Keon Ellis, Sasha was out already to go with Len and Lyles, and then to hear about Murray, a surprise departure in the second half, and then we saw Duarte leave the game. Any other word on the status of kind of those in-game injuries yesterday?
No, not at all. Late last night, after the game, I saw Keegan standing outside the locker room talking with some acquaintances. And then, he was walking rather well. It didn't appear to be in any great discomfort, but no word. And I'm sure he'll be getting treatment throughout the day today. But that's one of those things that is I think, legitimate concern to the Kings. And it's not just the fact that it's Keegan. It's like you were saying, when you've got, Lyles is still out. Alex Len's going to be out for a few more weeks. Ellis, Duarte, Vezenkov. I mean, it's just they're starting to stack up, and you wonder what kind of impact that will have on disrupting the rhythm. You wonder what kind of an impact it'll have on De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, because they're the two cornerstones, and every defense loads against those guys. And I've noticed in the last few games, Sabonis in particular is getting more and more attention in the post, and opposing teams are doing everything they can. Frequently, there are 3 defenders that collapse on him, trying to just get him out of his rhythm, trying to body him, hack him, whatever, frustrate him. And we noticed different times last night when there were double-team blitzes on Fox, trying to force him to give up the basketball. So those things certainly come into play in my mind as these injuries, they may not be totally severe or super significant, but it is disruptive. There's no question about it. And you've got to find a way to respond to it. So I think we're all anxious to see what happens tomorrow night. I remember being in Houston a couple of weeks ago after the Rockets spanked the Kings in the first of 2 games, had a day off in between. And we were stunned when Houston came out and, if anything, was even more effective in the second game. And you wonder, okay, what's going to happen with the Kings as they face the Pelicans again tomorrow?
Yeah, and that one, I mean, maybe the logic was, hey, De'Aaron's not here, and, you're going to have to play without good players at times. But this one, you got your studs, your stars, and I'm anxious to see how they respond because, the Pelicans, once they grabbed that lead yesterday, G-Man, in that second quarter, I mean, they never slowed down, and then Ingram really got going in that third quarter.
Well, he did. He had 18 points, if I remember correctly, in the third quarter. So when you've got players of that magnitude who are capable of putting up those kind of numbers, and then you've got nice complementary pieces around it, Willie Green had those guys playing well. And when you look at their last 3 games before last night, they had a win against Denver, the defending champions. They also had a win against the Dallas Mavericks in very decisive fashion, beat the Mavs by 21. And then they lost last Saturday to Minnesota, a 1-point game where they had the lead into the fourth quarter but couldn't sustain it. down the stretch. So they're playing some pretty good basketball right now. And as we all know, everybody is capable of having big nights in the Western Conference. It's just a grind. And I don't think that there's any surprise that there'll be some adversity. You'll stub your toe, but I don't think anybody saw that lopsided of a defeat for the Kings going into that game last night.
Yeah, Kings at one point trailed by 41. Talking to the voice of the Kings, the G-Man, Gary Gerould. G-Man, so just you personally, do you like this opportunity to be in the same city for a couple of days? It's abnormal. You guys had that in Houston, as you mentioned earlier, with 2 games over 3 days, about 4 days in Houston. You're getting that same kind of time in New Orleans. How do you like that? How do you think the players like being kind of hunkered down for a couple of days?
I like it a lot myself. I just think it makes really good sense. And we're seeing a little more of that each season from the league schedulers. And, I guess the only thing that you could say is, well, you're denied a second opportunity later in the season to come back to one of the cities, be it Houston, be it New Orleans, whatever. And, if it happens to be one of your favorite stops, that's disappointing in that sense. But I like it. And it's a nice change of pace. Because it was a back-to-back, the first of the season for Sacramento, this is a day off. And so who knows what the players will be doing and kind of, sitting back and licking their wounds, or how do you look at it? I don't know. I can't answer that from a player's standpoint, but I know that I like it. And I think that it's kind of interesting to see the second game, what kind of tweaks and changes will be made, and whether or not you can become more successful. If the Kings do get a split of these 2 games, that ensures them of the fact that they're going to have a winning road trip. And anytime you go on the road and you win more than you lose, it's a good trip in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I remember you saying years ago when the Kings were really a threat to be a championship team, we're talking early 2000s, you said one of the things you enjoyed the most was that you could go into any building and feel like the Kings could win and would win. And that didn't happen every night, but just that feeling. How close are you getting to that with really the way that Fox and Sabonis are playing on a nightly basis? I know it's a tougher question to ask after last night, but how often do you walk into an arena now going, yeah, Sacramento's got a really good chance to win tonight?
Toward the latter part of the season, I was starting to get that feeling for the first time in a couple of decades. Basically, it had been a long time, and initially this year it was kind of a rocky, you didn't quite know how things were beginning to play out, and then that experience in Houston didn't do much to help. We have since found out that the Houston Rockets under Ime Udoka are playing some really good basketball, and they're making life tough for everybody they face. So I don't think the Kings are at that spot right now. But man, I sure hope they do continue to do that. And you're right. I think that, with De'Aaron Fox and with Domantas Sabonis, the recognition that they've gotten in terms of being all-stars, all-NBA, team selections, etc. The downside is there's more spotlight focused on them, and defenses are loaded to try to make their night difficult. But if you're going to be, as Mike Brown frequently says, if you want to go from good to great, you have really got to work hard, and you've got to bring it every night. And it's so much of a cliche that I just hate hearing it. But you have to value every possession. And I remember over the years, Jerry Reynolds, that was frequently one of the things that he would talk about. And, a possession early in the game is just as significant as a possession late in the game. If you don't execute, if you don't do the things that are expected of you, you pay a price. Well, you don't want to put yourself in a position where that can cost you in a tight game down the stretch. So I think the Kings are, kind of on the threshold of inspiring that kind of confidence. I don't think they're there fully just yet.
Yeah, that good to great is a significant jump, even though it may not seem like it is. I think it's happened, though, G-Man, with Fox. I know last night, again, take that out, but he's a reigning Western Conference Player of the Week. Every night, he's in such control of this game. I've been saying he's a superstar. How much fun is it to call and describe what he's doing on a nightly basis?
Terrific. And, we all appreciate De'Aaron, and the fact that after the win in Dallas, we were able to get him on the postgame show And sometimes those things you just they just don't happen easily because radio is down the line in terms of opportunities to get some of the heroes. But being able to talk to him and to hear how earnest he is about what he does and what he's striving to do, and just knowing De'Aaron as we have come to know him over the years, I really think that this is a special young man. And I know that Mike Brown has really been beating the drum about, he is a legitimate MVP candidate. Well, you would look at last night's performance and you see 14 points and you say, well, I don't know about that. But when you look at the overall piece of work, Fox has just been sensational. And I felt bad for him because, just hours before the game, he's recognized as the Western Conference Player of the Week. And then last night he couldn't make a 3-point shot to save his soul. And as hard as he has worked on that, and you may have seen on social media, his wife, Rasay, was crediting Luke Laux for all of the diligent effort over the course of the offseason and helping De'Aaron become so much more effective and efficient in 3-point shooting. And last night to see him go 2 for 12, man, if I know Fox, I know he's just mentally beating himself up, but he's always a confident player, and he'll keep shooting them. Let's just hope they start falling again, like soon.
G-Man, I know you get a couple days in New Orleans. A lot of people are asking on our YouTube feed and our text line about, and that's a great food city. So they want to know what some of your favorite stops are, what you're going to be consuming food-wise there in New Orleans over the next couple days.
Well, yesterday at the team brunch, they had some really good gumbo. I'm not the biggest gumbo person, but I latched onto some of that. And then last night, post-game, they had a nice layout, Cajun Creole type food from one of the local restaurants. And I brought up, a couple of packs back to the hotel and had a nice little feast afterwards. And that helped relieve some of the stress of losing the game. I don't have any particular, singular favorite, but I don't know. I haven't really given it a lot of thought. It's usually just kind of play it by ear.
Yeah.
I would imagine I'll probably go across the street to visit Harrah's.
Yeah.
That's always a standard stop when you have time in New Orleans. And this is silly, I know, but they've done away, at least the last time I was there, they don't have the buffets anymore. And I used to enjoy the buffet here.
Yeah.
And they have a hot dog stand. And it's silly, but it's a pretty doggone good hot dog. And I like hot dogs. I like hot dogs. So, it could be a casino dog before the day is over.
Well, we know you'll enjoy your time. We know we'll enjoy your call tomorrow. We hope for better time for the Sacramento Kings tomorrow. G-Man, thank you for joining us as always. We look forward to talking to you tomorrow for the pregame show, and enjoy your time in New Orleans.
Thanks, Jason. We will do our best to do that. And here's hoping that we'll see a more competitive ball game tomorrow night.
Yeah, for sure. We need that. Thank you. That's the great G-Man, Gary Gerould there. Our appreciation to him for joining us for a few moments this morning from New Orleans. When we come back, the 8 o'clock hour,